Welcome to Navigating Receiverships, a podcast from the Commercial Receivers Association focused on building a better understanding of what brings companies into receivership, what happens in receivership, what makes them unique, some alternatives to receiverships, and ultimately, what happens to the business as the receivership is closed out. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Morcheski, CRA board member and CEO of Nimble Strategies.
Good afternoon. We're here today with another Commercial Receiver Association podcast. And to kick us off, I'm going to ask for our special guest today to introduce himself and give us a little bit of his professional background, including his company and things along that nature. So go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Emily, for having me. My name is Matthew Brash. I'm a senior managing director at Newpoint Advisors Corporation. Newpoint Advisors Corporation is a lower middle market, small market financial advisory turnaround firm nationwide. We specialize in various stages of turnarounds, something from so simple as a cash flow launcher, cash flow tool, to your typical operational financial viability turnaround. To our TRAIL program, which is an acronym for Trustee or Bankruptcy Receiverships, Assignment for the Benefit of Creditors, Interim Management, and Liquidations, the program that I head up. And we specialize companies that deal with revenues anywhere from about 5 to 50 million plus. Senior debt hovers around $10 million, give or take, and less. Our firm got into receiverships. I've been in this industry for about 16 years now. I got into the whole turnaround world because the company I was working for put into an involuntary bankruptcy. I was one of the only employees left. The Chapter 7 turned Chapter 11 trustee kept me on to assist him and his company for the creditors to market and sell the assets of the company I was working for at the time. I guess I did a decent enough job where he asked that I come work for him. So I spent about 7-8 years of my career learning about not only bankruptcy work, but specifically receivership type work, getting to the point where not only in operating businesses and receiverships or real estate and receiverships, but eventually having the experience, background, and education to eventually become a receiver myself. When I was recruited to Newpoint back in 2016, one of the things that I brought with to our firm was the receivership world, growing that practice on a national basis, and specializing again on that lower middle market, small market segment where lenders, attorneys, other third parties that need a receiver to come in with many, many years of experience with a bench and a bandwidth to cover a lot of different areas nationwide and, on the ground, be able to do so still in that lower middle market, small market segment because of our blended hourly rates as well as our fixed fee models that we set up for these type of engagements.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you were working for a company that went through a restructuring process. How do you think that helps you today, you personally, when you act as a receiver, or otherwise helps Newpoint assist its clients or its customers when they're either looking at their options or going through a restructuring process themselves?
That's a great question, Emily. I think one of the things that I learned in having gone through it myself is when you're dealing in a restructuring turnaround type environment, specifically a receivership, let's say, where it's quite invasive. You have someone coming in, basically taking over your business or taking over your assets and collateral, and you're really trying to work with, the defendant borrower or whoever the party or company is that you're taking over as a receiver for. And I think from a sensitivity issue, I can look at those folks in the eyes and say, listen, like I sat on your side of the table. I sat there when a Chapter 7, Chapter 11 trustee came into my office and basically said to me, I am now basically in charge. I'm taking things over. And your first reaction is, oh my God, like, am I going to lose everything? Like, what's going to happen? Like, you don't know because you've never been through it before, or you're not as well educated on it. And you're just uncertain about who this person is walking through the door. So having been on that side of the table myself, I know what it's like to be in those shoes of those folks that I'm coming in as a receiver for, or in a turnaround type world for, by saying, hey, like, here has been my experience dealing with this. Here is what the outcomes can be, because I know what's going to happen if we work together versus not work together. If you make things more difficult, if you don't make things more difficult, there are positive outcomes that can be had in receivership. and in the turnaround world. We just need to make sure we do this in a way that it benefits us both, whether that's you being in charge or not, or me being in charge or not. But I think that's a great way to get some comfort and a little bit more of like a relaxed environment by having the ability to say, yeah, I've seen through your eyes, like, I've sat in your chair, and I bring that up quite a bit with people.
And so tell me, when you're having these introductory conversations with your clients, are there any commonalities that you will see with clients that you just think, if you had done X 30 days ago, or if you had not done Y 60 days ago, we would be in a different position? Or with Newpoint, is it just a new fact pattern every single time, or somewhere in between?
Yeah. So basically, in the receivership sense, let's say if we come in as the receiver, a lot of what I have found in the cases I've been involved with is really, individuals, owners of businesses, a lot of times they're just sticking their head in the sand and hoping that all the bad things are just going to go away. And if they ignore the issue, it's going to somehow make them feel better that they're not addressing the issue. And a lot of times, we always tell attorneys, lenders, even customers of banks that they put us on their list of three, let's say, where we come in as a potential consultant. My line to them, Emily, is listen, there's really two options here. Option one is you can work with me and Newpoint, on an ally type basis. We work for you. You are our client, the bank's customer, and we're here to advocate for you. We're here to defend you. We're here to put you in the best possible position, bridge communication with your lender, put out a turnaround plan that is going to have an ask to get you to where you need to go. Or if you don't do it and you ignore the bank's wishes here, I'll be back with a court order taking over your business as a receiver. And here's exactly what happens in that window. So it's being able to really show them, you're at a place where, there's a fork in the road. And really, one is there are opportunities, there are ways to work through this. That's why it's called a workout. The other opportunity and option is hostile takeover in a way. And now you've lost trust and faith with your bank, your stakeholders, your employees sometimes. And what could have been a mess, but something that can be cleaned up, is now a mess where we're literally just going to come in and we are going to just overhaul the whole thing, perhaps. So that is the commonality or common ground that I find, or at least the way that I'm able to shift the perspective of a potential client in that position, is being able to show them, like, behind door number one is this, behind door number two is this,
right.
pick your poison. So
Right. You can't exactly read into the future, but you kind of can.
you can't, yeah. I mean,
You've done it enough. You can do that.
I know what the outcomes are going to
Yeah.
be. And, listen, I can't tell you how many times where I'm on pitches, and the first thing, or one of the first things that people say is, well, this is my first time. This is new to me. Well,
Right.
of course, like, hopefully it's also the last time too.
Right.
Every business at some point in its history has what we'll either call at our firm a bad day at the office, a bad quarter, or just bad ownership and management. So we've come across businesses in situations where they hit just a really bad point in their business. Everything just hit at once, but they can get through it. Or it's, yeah, they haven't taken care of the issue and now it's starting to grow a little bit, but we can still stop it. But then when you get to the receivership world, as you know, Emily, now it's like this thing is snowballed to the point where that ball is rolling. And right now, as a receiver, I'm trying to move all the people and the dogs and children, like everyone out of the way of this giant snowball before it just takes everybody out. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
So I want to ask you about some of the other programs you talked about when you first started introducing your company, the cash flow tool that I believe is pretty specific to Newpoint, and then also the trail program. And you gave us the acronym for that. So tell me about those two tools. My understanding that they're certainly a different tool than a receivership option, and a way to maybe stop the proverbial snowball from rolling down the hill if you can utilize them correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we always talk about in our industry how, and you kind of alluded to it, you should have called me 6 months ago type situation, which happens quite a bit. But especially in today's market, what we are seeing is, it's the old Ronald Reagan adage of trust but verify. And the cash flow launcher tool that we have is truly designed to speak bank, where anyone can just pull a model. You can Google a 13-week model and plug your items in there. But one of the reasons why banks, and we're kind of approved by not only just a lot of different banks in doing this, but the SBA likes our tool. A lot of attorneys, law firms like our tool because they can read it, they get it, and they can also transition that into other tools and options for their services as well. But the tool really breaks down and provides a lot of useful data that key stakeholders, specifically banks and lenders, like, you can throw in liquidity, you can throw in borrowing based materials. It really dives into and creates toggles where one of our customers or any of our customers can push a button and their sales or margins at 25%, they can see what it looks like at 15% and how that affects the model across the 13 weeks. So it's really a nice tool. And what I think we pride ourselves on is Newpoint, we don't call ourselves really consultants. We call ourselves coaches because we want to coach people up. Consultants sometimes it's like, oh, you have a consultant like, the Bob sitting in, the conference room.
Right.
We want to be the coaches. We want to be able to coach them. We want to help them. And then we want them to go and get on their way. So not only do we come in from our coaching platform to create that model, we'll help them build the model. But I think what sets us a little bit apart is in our proposals, in our engagement letters, we train them for the next 4 to 6 weeks and how they can do that model themselves going forward so they can understand their business better. But also, we don't have to be around anymore to give it to the bank or to the attorney. They can do it for themselves. And then our trail program, I kind of look at as green, yellow, red type, looking at a stoplight, where the green is our cash flow launcher program. The yellow is our full-blown turnaround operational financial viability operational assessment. And then trails kind of the red, which is, all right, am I going from offense to defense or defense to offense? Like, now we're in that realm of triage. You got to be able to deploy resources in a very, quick amount of time. So the trail program does give us the opportunity and does allow for, clients, whether in a debtor form or a creditor form, retain Newpoint on an FA, financial advisory type basis in bankruptcy. We have special subject matter experts that handle a lot of different areas in bankruptcy type work. In the receivership work, of course, we have federal and state receivership work that we do. Assignment for benefit of creditors, another useful tool that we use in various jurisdictions that allows for out-of-court wind down. It just depends on, where you are and what the circumstances. And also you need to get, sign off from your secured parties to even execute an ABC, which some people to this day still don't understand that fact.
Yeah, here in Missouri, they're not a thing.
Yeah, it depends. It certainly depends where you are and what you're going to do. We had a company in Michigan that would be a perfect candidate for an ABC, but the judges in that jurisdiction preferred, receivership type because they're just more familiar with receivership type of avenue. So, and then liquidations, we're not auctioneers, but one thing that we like to do is in wind down scenarios, create a market within a market for auctioneer wind down type specialists that are out there by basically going out and saying, okay, who's going to be the best auctioneer fit for this type of company and get them to compete against each other. I want to solicit various different bids from different type of auctioneers or brokers or investment bankers because I want to get the best possible price for our clients. But also surprisingly, a lot of times we'll find out based on the liquidation analysis that we do, we've had auctioneers come in that have offered us a guaranteed amount that is almost equated to what that liquidation analysis is plus the upside. So for a bank, they look at it and go, oh, actually, that's a lot more than we thought we were going to get. Maybe we'll take the risk off of our shoulders and put it onto the auctioneer or the third party shoulders. So that's kind of where our mix comes in from what we do on the trail side.
Got it. Do you or does Newpoint have any specific industry that it focuses on more than others, or across the board, is it kind of all things created equal?
Yeah, we've actually, I think in the last 2 years have hit every NAICS code that is out there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we've touched everything. We've got a subject matter expert in various different, construction, real estate, automotive, aerospace, injection molding, CNC machining, like we've touched everything. When I was recruited to Newpoint in 2016, we had about 8 people. Now we're about 30 plus. So we've grown over, the years and still are looking to grow. But we've been fortunate enough that, every industry we have touched in some way. Like, for example, right now, healthcare, assisted living, senior centers, nursing centers is obviously kind of a hot button option.
Right.
Logistics companies, that's kind of a scary
Right.
subject right now. So we do have, subject matter experts in that area as well. But yes, for the most part, we have been able to cover, every single type of industry, hospitality, restaurants, hotels during the
Right.
pandemic.
Yeah. Right.
So, yep.
And still, I mean, here, I sit in St. Louis, I know you sit in Chicago. I mean, hotels in our area in the Midwest, I mean, there are a lot of receivership action, at least with regard to hotels.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we had one in Wisconsin that we just did, and we were fortunate that we were able to actually help refinance the hotel
Oh, wow.
and give
Yeah.
them some opportunities because we were able to show using our cash flow launcher tool that based on increasing prices and if you were to increase occupancy by just X amount and moving a couple of switches, they could service their debt. So that changed actually just within a 2-week window, and we actually stopped the receivership just because we thought it was a little expensive, and we ended up working for
Oh, wow. That's
for-
great.
because it was just way more cost effective to do
Sure.
it, with all the reporting and everything. So
Right.
the bank very much appreciated that one. But yeah, hotels, it's all over the place. Restaurants, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's rampant.
So good segue into war story time. So most fun or interesting, or choose your favorite adjective here, receivership you've done or workout project, whatever term you want to use, in recent memory.
Well, I'll keep it PG-13 because I've had a couple of R-rated ones, and that will be for perhaps another time. But I've had a couple receiverships where there was just absolute fraud to the extent that when we got appointed as a receiver and we found all the documents and data, this was for a bucket truck company in the Midwest. And when we were appointed, a couple of things. Number one is there was about 180 trucks on the borrowing base. But when we went on site and did a count, there was only like 120. So basically they kept getting money for these trucks that, yeah, and then just refused to pay the bank on it. In addition to that, I think one of the things that was interesting is that they claimed that they didn't have a server on site. But what we did is they were clever and they tried to lock us out of their computers, and the owner and management were all in it. They were just like, oh yeah, we don't know anything about that. Like that was their answer to everything. Like, we don't know anything about that. Like, you're gonna have to ask so-and-so. So I actually, in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. when nobody was there, went back into the building because I had a key. We rekeyed the building.
Yeah, sure.
And I went on to just a computer terminal that was in the garage like shop where they like refurbish all the bucket trucks. And that computer terminal had access into the server. So I was able to like download and copy all the files and documents of the server. So like I really didn't have to go and find it, but like they didn't catch everybody. They didn't realize that they needed to go and also change out and lock out all the employees that were in the shop. But while I was in there, I noticed that the paint that they were using for their bucket trucks, and the bucket trucks are these lifts that go up and fix electrical lines. They weren't specific paint that is electric proof. So like they have to paint these trucks a certain amount. So like the current, if it's struck by, any electrical charges, like it will fry whoever's in the bucket truck. So they have this special paint that like diverts it and keeps it going. They weren't using that because it was so expensive. They were trying to cheaply do it. So we found that out while we were in the middle of the night doing that. So we had to basically immediately stop, production. And then we found all of the titles and tags and deal sheets for all the bucket trucks that were missing. And we went and started pursuing those folks to get the money back and got our trucks back, even though they bought it, which is a really hard situation. But they filed bankruptcy in the middle of us reaching out and starting to like kind of expose what they were doing.
Right.
So while we were in their offices, they filed bankruptcy and then came in and literally like charged us, their whole staff. We had to call the police. The sheriff had to come out.
Physically charged you.
Physically charged us, didn't touch us, but got into our face and was like, get the blank get out of here. We filed bankruptcy. I'm like, I become a custodian of the court. Like I still get to hold on to all these records and data.
Right.
I have a responsibility to turn over the trustee. So, but I will tell you that they didn't realize it in the trunk of my car. I had a bag full of like all the documents and titles and everything that I kept because I didn't want to leave it on site.
Sure.
And as I was leaving, I got a call and them saying, "Hey, we think the titles and everything are in your car. You need to come back." And the sheriff at the time, who didn't know anything about bankruptcy, was like, "You got to bring that back." I'm like, "I don't have any of the titles or documents or anything." He said, "Well, I need to come back and inspect your car." So on my way back, I stopped by a bridge. I took the bag, put it underneath the bridge, then went back to the site and then came back. And then
Okay,
they,
good.
in my final part of that is after they filed bankruptcy and I started working with the trustee to help her
Right.
start getting everything going, they set fire to the building and burned it down.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
So then, was there any investigation for bankruptcy fraud or anything like that?
They're in jail right now.
Yeah.
So
Is that via the what, FBI, if I remember correctly?
it was the FBI that was involved and the what is the one that deals with like arson and all that stuff. So whoever that is.
Whatever
So
that
they
branch is. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I just remember watching, I got a call from like the local authorities being like, "Have you heard what happened out here?" I was like, "No." I'm like, "They filed bankruptcy. Like, I'm pretty much done as a receiver. I'm helping out the trustee." And they're like, "Yeah, they set fire to the building. Like the whole thing burnt down. All the files in there are basically charred and gone."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That
So,
is, yeah, that's pretty epic.
but yeah, the two of the three main fraudsters, I believe, just this year got put behind bars officially.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a fun case.
Yeah, that sounds, it's like book worthy. I mean, here's your
Yeah.
shot right now.
Right?
Next time we talk to you, you're gonna be like a Pulitzer Prize winning author or something like that.
I was just gonna say, I felt like Robert Lang did in the Da Vinci Code. I feel like I was putting all these things together,
Totally,
piecing all these things
absolutely.
together. So
All right, so because this is for CRA, we'll do the shameless plug. What benefit do you think CRA has brought to either Newpoint or to your own, professional development as a receiver or in the turnaround world?
I mean, number one is the network. The network of just I love that the CRA has turned what I originally perceived to be a very like competitive competition type market into more of a team. Hey, like, Emily, I can't do this type of receivership because I don't have the experience, but maybe you, Emily, have the experience in doing it, or you have, the legal acumen and background to do this. It's not only just like being able to work with each other's resources and utilize each of our resources to the best point possible. Like if I can't do a, lamb farm in God knows where, but we have someone in our list
Yeah.
that knows how to
We
do it.
do, I mean, yeah.
Right. There's people that know how to
Absolutely.
do it. There's a saying of, I got a guy or a girl for that. That's how I say it.
Yeah,
Someone calls me about something like an agriculture type deal. Like I know some people that know how to do agriculture or farming type deals. Have I done them before? I have, but like on a smaller scale. Like I
sure.
think a lot of what is great about the members of CRA is we all know the sandbox that we're comfortable
Yeah.
playing in. We don't try and do something that we're not going to be able to do. So I think that first and foremost is we've really built a community of like sharing ideas, sharing concept, helping each other figure out best ways to navigate a receivership or a situation. And I think second, just the educational portion and getting out the word of how really important receiverships can be, and they all kind of come in different shapes and sizes. I think there was a negative connotation towards receivers and receivership, especially during the recession.
Right.
And I've always said that what really always has bothered me about being a receiver is that we are the punching bags. So we're the ones that take the beating because someone did not fulfill their obligation to a bank or to their partners or doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, but it comes back to us. And having that support network and being able to educate not only, other professionals, whether it's bankers, attorneys, turnaround professionals, but judges and other third parties that, are not as familiar with it, but basically saying, listen, like we're your eyes and ears. We're trying to do a job that you appointed us to do. This is the outcomes that can come from it based on all of our experience in doing it. And also just getting people to realize that the receivership tool is a pretty successful one. And if you really want to dive in, and this has happened a lot to me this year, especially Emily, where I've told potential banks and potential attorneys that we were working with, like, we can come in and do a financial advisory consulting engagement. But if you're already not getting the information from them, if they're already playing around, what makes you think that I'm gonna be able to go in there and get it a lot better for you? So
Yeah, very practical advice. Yeah.
sometimes utilize the receivership tool. And as I've
Yeah.
said, just sending a draft complaint and a motion to appoint a
Yeah.
receiver sometimes is just enough to get people to the table. And I emphasize that to a lot of people, that taking, calling your counsel and having them draft a motion to appoint receiver and sending it to your borrower saying, if we don't get this by this day, we're filing this. People come to the table
Sure.
more times than not in those situations.
Yeah.
So, and if I'm not appointed or hired because they got that done, Emily, you were able to, by just getting that motion on file or sending it, you're able to get them to the table and work out some type of payoff scenario or settlement or whatever in a way that's a great outcome. So
Right. Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for your time.
thank you.
Thank you for joining Navigating Receiverships, brought to you by the Commercial Receivers Association. Find more information at commercialreceiver.org and catch every Navigating Receiverships podcast by subscribing through your favorite platform today.